Hello, everybody. Welcome to Generation AI, the show where we demystify artificial intelligence in the world of higher education. I'm your host, Ardis Kadiu, and with me today is my longtime co-host, Dr. JC Bonilla. Hey, JC.
Hello. Hi, Ardis. Happy Friday. Happy November. Happy pre-Thanksgiving game, everybody. I was telling you, Ardis, today. My calendar tells me it's November. All the socializing tells me we're entering the holiday season. My brain, my body, everything is like, I'm not there yet. So how are you feeling with, where we are in the calendar year?
I am surprisingly cannot wait for the holidays this year. So it's one of those where my traveling has for work is kind of stopped. We came out of a busy travel season, and now November is a little bit of a lull. And then we go into Thanksgiving, so can't wait. Here in Raleigh has been a little cooler, the weather, but yeah, we'll talk more about that during this episode for sure.
Yes, well, things are changing obviously in your forecast, no pun intended, and that's part of the episode today. And I hope wherever you are from, you start feeling these end of year vibes, weather changing, and preparedness towards the holiday season. Today, we have a special episode, very special because it's a closing episode, right? It's a closing conversation. In today's episode, we want to look back at our show, our project here, the creation of Generation AI, in what we learned, why we did it, how it is moving and impacting higher education, their overall vision, because we are closing this chapter. We're bringing this chapter to an end. And of course, biggest reason, highly motivated and influenced by my friend Ardis' transition out of edtech and into a new professional journey. So we also want to reflect on that impact, the surprises that it brings. And as every journey that begins and it has an end, this one also has a new beginning for Ardis. So we start also having the opportunity to understand a bit of what is happening and how we bring this project to closure. So Ardis, this is a closing conversation, a special one. And yeah, how do you feel about this before we go into, the episode itself? So closing conversation, thoughts, my friend.
I mean, I can't believe we've been doing it now for 103 episodes. We just started this thing a couple of years ago, and we're like, hey, let's just have a conversation on what's happening, how things are going. Let's kind of think about, demystifying this whole AI for higher ed. There was a lot of questions that are happening, and now 103 episodes later, 2.5 years later, we are now closing, we're closing this journey. And, for me, it feels good. Like I had a stat the other day, only about 5% of podcasts make it beyond the 100 episode to the 100 episode. So I guess we're in that 5th percentile, JC.
There you go. Well,
you like numbers, so that's a good one.
It's always been good being a number. If on average we spent basically 10 hours in production, preparing, recording, post-production, so this has been 1,030 hours worth of impact. So I hope you, followers, listeners, friends, you have benefit from this investment of our time. It's been very special. It's one of my favorite times that I get to spend with Ardis as a friend, thought leader, and I hope you've enjoyed from it. Let's do a recap down memory lane, and let's just, before we go and say goodbye, let's remind everybody, why did we do this in the first place? So the origin story, right? So generative AI comes along, and it changes the world as we know it, but it was the 1% that jumped in Ardis Kadiu, right? You were one of the first ones. The company changes, or not changes, basically doubles down on its AI initiative. And then you pick up the phone and say, JC, we got to do this podcast. Let's go back to the origin story.
Yeah. You weren't even working for Element.
No.
You were at VaynerMedia at the time, yeah.
I know. Ultimately, what you want to do is the ultimate recruitment play. You brought me in and started dancing. Like, okay, I gotta come.
It took me a year to do that.
But what origin story? Why did we think of this, Ardis?
Yeah, I mean, during that time 2 years ago, this is 2023, 2024. 2023 actually, there's just so many things that were in the market. There's like misinformation, there was AI fear. So we were building products on AI, and we saw the opportunity and what could be done, and we're doing a lot of teaching and learning. And the podcast was a way for us to come in and basically keep bringing a technical voice, but bring in a more educated, more technical people who are actually building on AI to the market, specifically for higher education. There was a lot of folks that were just, pundits. They're like, well, this thing is going to be great. It's not going to be great. It's fear. It's, policy, all of these things. And people had no background in AI or even the technical side of it. And they weren't even building anything. And they were just spewing all this, misinformation. So that was the reason why we did this. It was to think about, like, remove the noise and basically give people the inside track and the kind of the technical angle of what is happening in AI and how to think about it.
Yeah.
Very practical.
And one of the reasons why the name emerges, right? It's that we also saw the interplay between the technology, this conversation that we want to have around clarity, right? A lot was demystifying the tech stack and the technical details, and we had the passion for it, but always at the intersect of how it affects the operating model in higher education. And oftentimes, as a generation of AI, what we knew is that it was going to reshape two things, right? How we think about technology, but how we operate and how we behave against that technology. So that's why the name Generation came out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that's one of the key things here, is that a lot of people were thinking about AI as in a restrictive way, and our vision and kind of what we are trying to put forth is, hey, here's how your students, and here's this new generation that is being brought up in high school, that's going through college. Here's how they're thinking about AI, and here's how an AI first student body looks like, and here's an AI first consumer looks like and behaves, and trying to bring that to the audience. So hence the name Generation AI.
So yeah, we set out to, in a way, chronicle and comment in real time as AI was shaping work. And I hope that in these 103 episodes, you've your evolution, your journey has been special enough, right? So a big shout out to some friends and family. My sister-in-law was telling me the other day, so hello, Tuba, how she's now doing a knowledge base, and she launched her agent and kind of name it. It's like so interesting how individual stories really tell us that in our narrative, work is being reshaped. Either we influence it, or we demystify it, or we were a parallel to their journey. But it has been very, very, it's been a pleasure, right? Ardis, let's switch to, that was the promise. Did we deliver on the promise? Kind of what we learned around this journey of chronicle, reshaping how AI reshapes work, higher education, and generations and culture, and on kind of clarifying tech stack. How do we think our episodes came along? Any favorite episodes? What did you learn in this process? And what do you think the evolution was?
Yeah, so basically, when you look at the most downloaded episodes ever, at the top of it is building the agentic AI framework. So this is a series that we did, and how to think about agents, and kind of what are, and this is, this is kind of the foundation of what we've been doing for a long time. We've also, a few other episodes that are top of the list is who would have thought, model context protocol, or MCP, how agents kind of talk to each other. That's kind of our second most downloaded. And then you go down the list, and then you have things like prompt engineering is dead, long live context engineering. So people are hungry for the practical use cases, and how these things work behind the scenes, and how to, how the tools are working. So the adoption part becomes super important, rather than the policy and all of those things, right? So people really want, practical things. The other thing that we've seen is kind of the shift from AI as tools, and when we started earlier on, it's all about AI as a tool, it's going to make you better, faster, to No, no, no. It's all about agents now. And that's why we saw the building the agentic framework is AI as work, right? How does AI work for you and alongside you rather than it's just being another tool like a browser or a, or a calculator and things like that. So we've seen that shift and we've seen it happening over the last like 12 months and it's been really, really interesting to see how we're covering it, the labs, the different agents. Agents have become the name, kind of the word of the year, so to speak, in 2025 for sure. Yeah.
It's a fascinating journey, right? That as we are in it, we narrate it, and I hope you all felt it, right? Yes, adoption is king. It beats ambition, and as you mentioned, just relooking at these AI tools through the lens of agentic really meant that AI is work, right? And what I really came out on this transition that we did from AI, generative AI, and also like full double down on agentic. If you follow basically episodes, I would say 1 to like 50, it's generative AI. And then, I don't know, 51 to like 103, double down on agentic. Is that we kept on saying agentic AI doesn't reduce work per se, it just reorganizes work. So how big it is, right? And artists, wonder how you think about this, because through our 103 episodes, I really saw something that is really important, right? It's not about commenting for the sake of commenting, kind of intellectualizing, theorizing AI per se, but it is about doing it or personalizing. Our quest and our ask, everybody do it and touch it and kind of failing fast. That was something that I was caught by surprise. I thought we will talk more the theories, but really kind of leaning into, hey, these are the buttons you need to press. This is how you use Notebook LM, to your point of the most important ones. When we double down on practice and how to use it is where we kind of saw the most appetite for our content.
Yeah, exactly. The time to value becomes kind of that real wedge in there. It's like, how do you provide that? Speed is also really important as AI is moving very, very fast. It's like folks need to get upskilled very fast. It's not about theory. It's about how do you start implementing it, and the models become faster and faster, better and better. The context changes. So, and we've seen it, right? We've also seen it with the Element 451 customers as well, because of course our journeys kind of parallel that. So even though we try to make this podcast about AI in higher education overall and kind of bringing that technical and the news and the builder perspective to it. But from a product perspective, we've also seen that leaders who operationalized really early and changed outperform those who basically call this work intellectualized it. So it's like the conversational, like you having conversations and building policies did not get you any faster to a better outcome. Those who actually implemented it and put it into production, they're getting the outcomes right now. So that's kind of another area that we saw from an adoption perspective, and we've highlighted a lot of that during our 2 years here on use cases and so on and so forth.
Awesome. Last comment here before we go into kind of our closing of the closing. I want to read a quote that I've used over time, and I think it really symbolizes how I feel about our contribution here, right? Is that what we've seen throughout these 2 years, Ardis, is that technology has not been the bottleneck, right? Organizational readiness was, and is. And probably it will continue being a little bit. How do you feel about this statement where technology leads and us, people, teams, organization, we're the bottleneck?
Well, I agree 100%. And that's partly one of the reasons why, I'm I'm kind of transitioning and moving on. I'm a builder and kind of want to go back to actually building stuff. It's people get in the way, right? A lot of people get in the way. You have to coordinate a lot of things. Organizational change and transformation is really hard. So we're seeing it, in a fast moving company like Element, like we're seeing that, it's harder to get something done today that it was 2 years ago or even 3 years ago when we had half of the people. There's a lot more coordination. There's a lot more planning and kind of basically dragging people along or versus we know we need to get done, and let's just do it type of approach. So it's very hard, right? The technology is there, but it's about, you know, kind of shepherding those people along and moving those people along. That's the hardest part. And I know presidents and higher ed leaders right now, they don't have an easy path. However, it's very, very important that we kind of move things forward. But yeah, people are the bottleneck for sure.
Amen. Well, that's right. And this is where our, part of the show where we come to the official last episode and finale of our journey, right? So, Ardis, we shift our conversation towards this chapter that we've started naturally concludes, and there's some very interesting motivations of why this is happening that are very core to the persona, the intention, the why we build this show, and what we learn over the years. So I want to ask you a few questions on kind of reflections, but before we go there, would you mind expanding to our friends and followers and audience the decision why we're actually bringing this to a close, and specifically how it's linked to your professional journey?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to kind of thank everybody for kind of listening to us for the past couple of years here, ramble and
Lots of
kind of
love
provide
for
our
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this podcast has been more about us around kind of understanding and clarifying our vision and our ideas on what we're doing day to day. So it's given us a place to kind of reflect and test a few things out and seeing how audiences react, and also be able to bring those ideas that we're working internally with to the outside world as well. So as I kind of step away from Element and I transition to a board member, my day to day is going to transition, and I'll actually go ahead and build my next thing, and I'm going to be in builder mode. And so my relationship with higher education is going to move towards more of an advisory role as part of Element. So I won't have a pulse on a lot of the things that are happening in higher education anymore. So I won't be necessarily at all the conferences. So you need a really different voice to kind of bring that insider perspective, and that's the reason why I feel that we're going to conclude this journey of Generation AI. And because this has been more of the technical side of the house as well, we'll probably have, and JC will probably have an announcement here soon. So we either use this feed or a different feed, but JC will still continue to kind of bring the AI voice in higher education and how that works. But I just won't be part of that, just because I don't have much to add, given that I'm not going to be in higher ed, or I'm not going to have an ed tech and have the pulse on it every single day. So I'll be the advisory, and I'll bring, product kind of points of view. And again, because Generation AI has always been intertwined with Element 451, I feel like now it's the right moment to kind of move away from it, and kind of let the other leaders at Element kind of bring their voices in, and kind of what they're seeing in the market, and how that kind of intertwines with the product, so you can have a better direct connection around that. So, and again, this is intentional. The show isn't ending because momentum has faded. It's more of, we need other voices to come in to amplify that have the pulse in higher ed, and kind of expand the point of view here as well. I want to say thanks to everybody who's, like I said, been part of us for the last 2 years and has listened. Our audience has grown tremendously, and we use a lot of these episodes to in different talks, and to point people to them on how things are done. So expect more AI from Element and Enrollify going forward. But again, it's been an honor, and kind of collaborating with you, JC, over the last 2 years has been incredible. So thanks for sometimes changing episodes the last minute, as I'm like, as this doesn't feel right. It's like we're just doing it on the fly. It's like a new model drops, and now we have to pivot, and like, holy shit, we got to focus on that. So you've been a really good partner and co-host around that for sure. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for bringing me along on the journey. It's been super fun for me. And yes, as you mentioned, it's important to stay honest and true to oneself and in your style, fully immersed in a sector. So yeah, you're an expert, so you can comment. It's fundamental. And as you create a new professional chapter and you a new expertise, if you will, that's probably where you're gonna be going. So Generation AI comes to a natural conclusion and loved every bit of it. So as a creative process, sometimes the beginning and end. Ardis, let's wrap up with a bit of think about the 5 questions that were to ask you. And I'm going to read to my kids when they're older and like, this is what we learned, what artists learn in this sector, right? So this, at the core of the technology, we've basically expanded the arc of edtech, right? So when you see the edtech before and after AI, right? But generative AI, like, what are you the most proud of? Like, reflect on the edtech arc, right, if you will. What are you the most proud of? But looking at this evolution of AI as the shift.
Yeah. So, look, the journey for what we build at Element and kind of EdTech has always been this through line of how do we connect schools better with their students, and how do we create those relationships through technology. So the story there is from Spark 451, to where kind of that vision starting to build technology, to moving to its own company, Element 451. We're always creating tools, right? We're creating tools to use ourselves, but those tools were great. Their UX was great. But until AI came around, those tools are being used by people, and they just could scale only so much. So the connection with the students and the personalization that was super important was happening, but not at scale. As AI kind of came around, the biggest impact that I feel, and I'm really proud of, is the evolution over the last 2 years of Element becoming or moving from an AI powered platform or a platform where a CRM platform to now becoming an AI platform for agents where work is actually done by agents. So that's the most proud thing that I think I've done. And again, this represents kind of the accumulation of the vision that higher ed needs, kind of this purpose-built, not retrofitted solutions, and we build it from the ground up. One of the things that I want to call out is I'm really, really proud of the cutting-edge technology that we're bringing to higher ed, because it's very, very expensive, and the market is very slow to move. So if you are not committed to it, a lot of technologies take multiple years, and the ones that are at the forefront, they're not going to come to EdTech or higher ed to provide those technologies, because the opportunity cost is so much higher outside of higher ed. So why would somebody come into an industry where it takes 12 months to go through a procurement process, so everything is so slow? So what ends up happening is that higher ed gets the short end of the stick. The market is not that big. The technology that comes in, it's legacy, very hard to move away. So we're using tools and we're using technology that is most of the time years behind. So the most proud thing that I have is that we're bringing, and we have brought this tech to higher ed. So we're in par with legal tech, with commerce, with every other platform, agentic platform that you go think about out there. We brought it to higher ed, and I'm so proud of what we've done here with the team. And it's going to kind of accelerate even faster over the next couple of years, and kind of scaling. But that's the part that I'm really proud of.
You're so right that one of your impacts and contributions to our field, right? It's basically democratizing and introducing a cutting edge technology on campus, where traditionally campuses will get these cutting edge technologies with years of delta. So we saw that in multiple technologies, from cloud, digital, shopping cart, predictive modeling. Those type of technologies enter campus, but there was maybe 5, 10, I don't know, multiple years in which it was in other sectors, and then it came within higher education. So I think that's
Exactly.
on the money, and
Exactly.
having digital workers, or what is called the AI digital workforce, being introduced and being tangible for enrollment management, student success, continuing education, it's a big contribution. On the higher ed concept, like if you were to zoom out today, these cutting edge technologies are like really for out there, right? But there's things I'm pretty sure the higher education got right. What do you think are there, and what are the things that still needs to be kind of worked on?
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna.
Oh
I
wow,
did
he's
prepare for
he's
this.
he's stopping, friends.
Yeah. So I think higher ed got a few things right. Right. They experimented with student facing use cases first. So from writing support to tutoring to FAQ to chatbots. So they started the conversations. They experimented with those tools, and that was. They got that right. They started those experimentations. They also started the conversations about ethics, bias, academic integrity.
Maybe a little too much
Those
on
are
that.
hard questions. Yeah, exactly. But they started those conversations, and it's good, right? Those are really good conversations to have. They also took, I think, leadership this time around took AI seriously, and it was a top down. It's been a top down push. So I feel it's not buying having the conversation with presidents around AI is so easy right now. They see that, but dragging their teams along has been kind of a drag, and maybe transitioning to where they got it right is that usually leadership has a hard time to kind of transition. This time around, they saw the need, they saw the benefit, and they're pushing their teams. Where things are still missing is the business. There's still a lot of silos in the organizations. There's still a lot of silos in higher ed. So we're still kind of stuck in every department has their own tool. So they're still stuck in moving from like this isolated tool to more coordination and agents. When you think about AI, it needs access to a lot of the data. It needs to be across institutions. It needs to kind of have that full student journey. So you can't have, you know what I mean? You can't have, it's not a tool, right? So you need the communication layer across agents, whereas people were doing that before. Now it needs to be there. So we're still missing a lot of that. And, AI designs for staff workflows and org design, not just for students. We need a lot of that as well. So anyways, I
Penetrating, yeah.
think, yeah, I think we're still missing that whole part of it. And higher ed is not quite ready. We're seeing glimpses of it, but we still see departments buying their own individual things versus CIOs and leadership leading the way by having institutional cross student journey or enterprise kind of solutions.
Yeah, I recognize what you're saying on the manifestation as in the what is being done the right way is this AI, subcommittees and stakeholders and advisory groups. They usually driven from the top, and it seems that every school has done one of them. But to your last point, it's fascinating to see how manifestations of AI, student facing, chatbots type of things. But how do I run my workflows, my process? How do I do the things that I do on campus via AI? It's still lagging.
Yeah, we still need to build that. So like basically moving beyond the wrapper thinking to like native AI in the tools. So that infrastructure for agentic AI that can handle the complexity of enrollment journeys and the whole student journey. Like we're not there yet. Like we have solutions, but they haven't adopted that yet. They don't have that mindset. So it's really hard to kind of push for that.
Let me test your pattern recognition skills on humans. You speak to so many people, especially leaders, right? And I've seen you mentor presidents and anyone in multiple people in position of leadership as it relates to technology and efficiency or operationalization, automation. So you probably have an idea what are the behaviors, the instincts that make someone successful. Like, is there a persona that you think emerges that like this is the leader of the future? And like, what do you see that you hope people kind of carry forward as the instincts, patterns, persona for success here, as it relates to, of course, AI?
Yeah. Well, look, the number one thing that I would say, stay curious about AI, right? It's like the one thing is like don't delegate understanding. So you don't need to be an engineer, but you can't lead in this area if you're scared of the tools and are the tools that are shaping it. So that's the area that's like you got to do yourself and understand yourself, and you can't delegate that. You can't say go learn about AI and do this. That is the number one thing that I've learned so far, and it's failed over and over again over the last few years that we've seen, even here at Element, to be honest. So that's I would say the top one around AI.
Oh, but just a little pushback, not pushback, a little bit of double click. The leadership level, staying curious means pressing buttons sometimes, right? How do you see that, right? Because sometimes the aura of a president is, I shouldn't be pressing buttons. My team does it. So can you say more about that? Knowing that, as I call you, you're sometimes a very interesting CEO that you press the most buttons in our company. So you break the barriers of leadership and execution every day. So how do you see that for our leaders?
So when you're thinking about a tool like AI, it's not about like, okay, this technology is put in place and now we're kind of operationalizing it. So the technology is changing, and what is possible with it is also changing very, very quickly. So as a leader, you need to be able to basically guide your team and call bullshit when a new prototype of something that the team is spending months and months and months of working is not working, and you know what the limits are, and you know how fast that's going, and you need to be able to kill it because bad news does not travel upstream very often, right? It's like, so when things are failing and we know that 95% of these POCs are failing, it's like it's that speed that really matters. And if you don't have your pulse on how to shortcut that and to say, okay, this stuff works, this doesn't work, I'm testing it myself. So then you're going to have all the bureaucracy of an organization around it, and everybody's going to angle for, well, it's working, we need more time, we need more money, we need more this, we need more that. And then it's very hard for you to kind of weed out what's truth and what's positioning. So that's why I think it's very important for leaders to have their pulse on what's happening and do it themselves, so they know what the if something is real, or something is a technology barrier, or it's a person organizational barrier.
100%, 100%. All right, this last one. As you close this chapter, like, are there things that you take into your mind, questions, into your next chapter? Were you excited about to explore next? A bit of, closing and future forward type of questions of what are you excited about next?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been kind of excited in, as we look at higher ed, it's very mission driven, and I love the mission of education. But thinking about how can we take this new world of AI as work and AI agents kind of coming in, and personal assistants, like that work is very important, and we can apply to a lot of different verticals and industries as well. So I'm really excited to kind of take a little bit of time and start thinking, okay, how do we apply the same agentic, capabilities to other areas and other industries that, have a much bigger, I would say, TAM, or a much bigger kind of usage, so to speak. Yes, at Element, we have about 350 customers. We have millions of users on Element, but there's hundreds of millions of users that can use agentic AI as part of consumer applications and other larger B2B type enterprises. So, I don't think I'm ready to say what exactly we're going to do next. However, I know that it's going to be something that focuses on agentic AI as in the consumer world, and aiming for a large, fast iteration where experimentation becomes really, really easy when you go directly to users versus the enterprise, or in this case, like institutions. So I'm kind of making a 180 pivot, right, and saying, okay, I need things to be more experimental and move a lot faster to deploy, the effects of this, versus seeing like 1 year how institutions are changing their enrollment, right?
Makes a lot of sense. And I guess in other words, as you start this journey, right, a bit of a stealth mode in the company, right? Obviously, you're not starting a taco truck or a restaurant. You'll be around the agentic ecosystem because that's what we do here. That's what you believe in. That's so core in your superpowers. So it makes a lot of sense. But we are excited to see what comes out of your fingerprints, your brain, and the teams that you put around it. Assuming there's humans, because knowing you, maybe this is the no human, all agents driven type organization. So exciting. Ardis, as we signed off, what's next for our audience? A bit of a few words of advice. I love what Ardis, JC have done. How do I continue my journey? A bit of that type of commentary. So if I wanted to hear more of this commentary, any recommendations on how do I continue? I have two.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I obviously, right, this feed, it's important with nurturing, right? We are going to be probably leveraging a bit of this feed. One of the things that it's important for us at the company is to have a thought leadership piece. It will be very different. So I'm going to be coming back probably in a few weeks, making an announcement on how this is taken forward, but it's going to be different, right? For the obvious reasons that I already just mentioned. So think about, I wouldn't be able to replicate Ardis's technical forte, but there's a really important journey that Element is doing around agentic, the impact of AI in higher education, and of course, staying core to our sector, EdTech. So stay tuned for those announcements, and we hope you can leverage our journey and continue there. Number two, I really believe that in your podcasts feeds, there's something called Related, and there's a ton of content out there that basically kind of has lookalikes. I recommend you do that. There's so many feeds that do AI commentary, and I just think that there's a multi-dimensional aspect. So don't stop listening, don't stop doing, just literally, feed from it. We all have different intakes, but I think that some of the things that our platforms do is that they have recommendations, and that's kind of the part that I would recommend you do. Go into your social media, your listening platform, and say related or recommended from their feed, and you'll probably find some continuity there. What do you got, Ardis?
Yeah, JC, I think look, kind of words of advice for me is, I have three things in here that I want to kind of call out. And if you're a builder, you're a CEO, you're a leader, number one is bias for building, not just talking. So don't over theorize, prototype, ship, learn, just do, right? Just go ahead and do. Don't talk yourself to death or talk your teams to death around it. So bias for building and action is super important. Tell the truth early. So if you're a builder, if you're a leader, if you're somebody who's building stuff, for myself is like tell the truth to customers, to teams, to yourself. Don't hide behind, like the vanity metrics and things like that. Failing fast and learning from it is super, super important. So that's something that I've learned to do. One more is like, if you're building processes, if you're building products, if you're building workflows, whatever, for me, it's designed for humans, even when you're building for scale, right? So always ask, like, whose life gets better if this thing works? So like, how am I improving someone's life? So if you're building a process for a student, think about that student in mind. And of course, this is really important, but we sometimes get caught up in our own little worlds and think about the process versus like the outcome. And then last but not least, this is a favorite of mine. It says, I would say, stay uncomfortable. So don't get stuck defending the status quo that you built, right? If you're digging in and status quo, it's very, very hard to move forward. So stay uncomfortable is probably one of the things that, if you think about like my, as kind of someone who's in my exec team, one of the things that you probably notice is sometimes I would just try to argue for the sake of arguing because I want to make sure that, hey, we're not just, thinking and have this hive mentality, whereas everybody's thinking the same thing. I want to see, like, how convinced are you that this is working? Like, how uncomfortable are you with these ideas? Are you going to stay status quo, or we're going to move something different? So anyways, that's my favorite one. And destroying or erasing all the work that you've done in the past and kind of starting fresh. Sometimes it's part of staying uncomfortable. And I feel that's kind of where I am. So
that's a nice way to bring it to a conclusion. Ardis, I'll let you sign off for one last time. And again, thank you for everybody who's listening to our journey. If this podcast has helped you find a moment of clarity, I think Ardis and I have done a decent job. And if it's been more than 2, then you are part of our community. So Ardis, thank you for everything. It's been super fun. And yeah, wrap us up and send us off.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, JC. It's been a pleasure. And just keep on building, everyone. Generation AI is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you're going to like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing weekly, and we've got a wide range of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed leaders and professionals like you find their next big idea. They feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts, like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Jenny Lee Fowler, Brian Gross, and many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform that's helping institutions all over the country create meaningful, personalized, and engaging connections with their prospects and students. Learn more at element451.com.